What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10. Then we build them together. Now this week we are talking about the path of the Beast Barbarian, and we are going to be building one in today's video. So if you are excited to unleash your inner beast and see just how beastly we can make this, go ahead, leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. As you can see, most people who watch this channel are actually not subscribed, so please help me out. Go ahead and subscribe. It just takes a couple seconds and it will be awesome to notify you whenever I upload. Of course, click the bell and change that to all just to make sure that you don't miss my future uploads. We are going through every single playable option, so there's a lot to cover and there's a lot coming up, so you don't want to miss any of that. Also, leave me a comment down below letting me know what your thoughts are on this build and what you would do in your own build. Of course, this one lends itself to a lot of different options, and so I'd love to see your thoughts down below. So, as I always say at the beginning of my build videos, yeah, there were a lot of different builds that I went with before I came to this one. I got, done with about 2 of them, and then I was like, no, I'm gonna throw those out. So there are a few that ended up reaching the chopping block, and I'll talk about those slightly here and then more at the end as far as this specific build. I thought about doing a claws build or a bite build, and I still might in the future if you guys let me know down in the comments if you'd like to see that. But today we're going to be focusing on the tail as far as what we get at level 3. If you haven't seen my Path to the Beast ranking where we go into detail about everything that we get, that'll be up in the iCard above for you so that you don't miss any of that. We won't be going into so much detail today as much as what we did then, so make sure that you watch that video first and then come back. All right, welcome back. Thank you for watching that video as well. And so yeah, today we're going to be focusing on the tail and its utility and how we can kind of optimize that a little bit. Again, this is not a series of necessarily going super optimal, but it's going, how can we make this super fun and super flavorful while also being functional? I don't want to give you a build that just doesn't work. I always want it to be something that's a lot of fun and that has a lot of flavor, but still is going to definitely keep up with your other builds. And so that's our goal here today. So we're going to take a little bit more of a defensive approach today rather than an offensive approach like what you would with the claws. And so yeah, let's go ahead and jump into today's build. Of course, a lot of our honorable mentions will be listed at the end of the video, but as far as races, we actually had several. We'll go ahead and talk about those. So I thought about, actually, my first one was a shifter, which is definitely interesting. I've not used one of those before, actually. I've never built something with a shifter. It's newer. It's a newer race, and it's got several sub races that really would have worked really well with this. Shifters are shape changers, and so it really would make a whole lot of sense with Path of the Beast. Several of them give you some really good features that really augment what you get. So definitely consider it. It's very good. Of course, variant human, because variant human, but I felt like that was a little boring, especially for this one. I wanted to go a little more crazy. My third choice, and I almost went with this, but Goblin. I almost went with a Goblin Barbarian because, you know, we can switch around all of our stats now because of Tasha's. And so I almost went with a hulking small Goblin, which would have been really funny. But we ended up going with Bugbear. Bugbear, it was introduced as far as a playable race in Volo's Guide to Monsters, and this gives you some really cool stuff. So you not only get things like proficiency to stealth, dark vision, you get all kinds of stuff like that. What we're here for is our ability to have reach all the time. It's called Long Limbed, and so basically it allows us to have an extra 5 feet of reach with melee attacks, which is fantastic. This will definitely allow us to be a lot more versatile as far as a barbarian, and I really like that. Plus the stats are already kind of where we want them. We may move them around just a little bit, but +1 to strength, +1 to dex isn't too bad. But a lot of times when you're making a build, you either want strength or dex. You're not really doing both. We'll just see where we end up with this one. Speaking of stats, we are of course using our modified standard array just like always, and so it is going to look something like this. 17 for our strength, of course, 15 constitution, 13 wisdom, I know that's weird, but we'll talk about it, 12 dex, 10 charisma, and 8 intelligence. Of course, intelligence is going to be our dump stat. So this leaves us with a 19 strength, 13 dex. We're just going to leave the stats where they are on this one, and there's a reason. We need the 13 in wisdom because of our multi-classing that we're going to be doing. And I know all of these wisdom-based multi-class options on barbarians are very weird. But I think we're going to get a lot out of it, and it's a very, very small dip. So there's really not that much of a price to pay for the dip that we're taking today. So I think that you guys will really like that. As far as dex, for right now, we're going to go ahead and take our scale mail, which will give us a +1 bonus there. But eventually we're going to be ditching our armor and then using unarmored defense. That'll be a little bit down the road, but for now we'll go ahead and take scale mail. It'll do okay, and the +1 to dex works with it just fine. We are going to be looking for a shield, by the way. We're going to be looking for a shield somewhere down the line, just to help our AC a little bit more. We definitely want a high AC with this build, and our tail is going to help us with that. So that is a great feature for us to help with that. As far as a weapon goes, I thought about doing a lance build, which could have been really cool, but I don't want the disadvantage at 5 feet, which was kind of what I was thinking for the goblin. So that way we have bonus action shenanigans without having to dip into rogue. It gives us that, but I ended up going with a Morning Star. You could also go with a war pick. Either one's fine. Basically, our focus is on piercing damage here because it also works on our tail, and we're going to be trying to get a feature later that helps our piercing damage a little bit more. So I wanted to focus on piercing damage overall. That way we get all of the benefits for everything that we're doing entirely. So yeah, Morning Star or war pick, either one works fine. For class, of course, we are starting Barbarian. Just like always, we always start in our featured class and subclass. That way, we have covered all of the standard equipment and all of the proficiencies and all of that stuff. All of that has already been covered in our general Barbarian guide, which, of course, will be up in the icon above right there. So make sure you check that out. If you're confused about any of the regular Barbarian features, we go into a lot of detail there that we do not go into here. But so at level 1, we're going to go ahead and pick up Rage and Unarmored Defense. Right now, it's better for us to go ahead and wear the armor. At least it's better to have the armor for now, and then we will have to ditch it later. But you're going to want to try to pick up a shield as soon as you possibly can, because that will definitely be helpful for our AC. Our AC isn't terrible right now, but it will get a little worse later when we drop the armor. And then it'll get better. We'll find ways to fix it as we go. But yeah, go ahead and take your shield, and go ahead and take your scale mail. It comes standard, no problem. So Rage is going to give us an extra little damage boost, of course, give us help to our strength checks, strength saving throws, all of those fun things. And so yeah, Rage, obviously our quintessential feature. Level 2, we are of course sticking with Barbarian, and we are going to grab our Danger Sense, which gives us advantage on dex saves as long as we can see what's happening. Always a good thing. And then Reckless Attack. Reckless Attack is basically our spam feature. We're going to be using this a lot. Even as a defensive build, we're going to be using this quite a bit. And so that's why we want to get our AC up as high as we can. And we kind of can afford to do this, right? Once we hit level 3, we will have our tail, which we can go ahead and use to add to our AC. And so that's absolutely fantastic. We're going to have a lot of things to do as a reaction on this build, I'm just going to tell you. So you're going to have to be careful watching what you're doing and not trying to use more than one reaction. But yeah, you're going to have a bunch of things. And so you're probably going to be using a reaction almost every turn, if not, like by the time we're level 7, you're going to be using your reaction pretty much every single turn, which is great. That's just free damage and free utility, so that's fantastic. Level 3, of course, we grab our subclass, and we're going to be taking Path of the Beast. So Path of the Beast is going to give us our ability to take a natural weapon. Now it does count as a simple melee weapon for us, which is always good. That does combo with several other features that we're really not going to be utilizing in this build, but you can utilize it in other builds, which we could talk about in the future. Again, let me know in the comments down below. But basically our tail is going to give us a reach weapon, but remember, we have long limbed from our race, which means that we get an additional 5 feet. So we now have a 15-foot circle around us with this tail, and we can use that anytime we want, which is absolutely fantastic. So we've got our War Pick or Morning Star that can go out to 10 feet, and then we've got our tail that can go out to 15, which is fantastic. And then, of course, we can also, as a reaction, if the creature is within 10 feet of us, we can use it to add to our AC a D8 roll, which is amazing. I love that. 4th level, we get to take our first feat or ability score improvement. I know that we have a bunch of odd stats right now, but I'm gonna have to leave them alone, which is I know is frustrating to have a 19, a 15, 13. Like I know that that's really annoying, but I'm gonna have to leave them alone right now because I want to go ahead and take Sentinel. Sentinel is an absolutely fantastic feat for this build because now we can basically lock down a 15-foot circle around us. There's a lot of utility there with Sentinel. I'm sure you all know about it. We've talked about Sentinel in the past when we've taken it. Sentinel is fantastic on this, and having it out to 15 feet is even better because now we can just take a 15-foot hallway, which is pretty large for a hallway even, and completely lock that down, which is amazing. So absolutely fantastic. I love that. Level 5, we get extra attack, and so I wanted to make sure that we beeline for this before we go anywhere else with this. So we're also going to get fast movement, so an additional 10 feet of movement speed, always good. Level 6. Level 6 is tough. Level 6 is real tough. And honestly, this is one of the first ones where I'm going to say it depends on your campaign. Normally here, under like most circumstances, I would go ahead and multi-class. However, if you are about to go into a water portion or a portion where climbing would be great, if you need something like that in your party, go ahead and take 6th level in Barbarian so that you can have that versatility. It is very, very useful. However, I really want to pick up my dip earlier rather than later, and so now seems like a good time, even though that's right there. So like I said, if you really need that swim speed or that climb speed, go ahead and take it, no problem. But I'm going to go ahead and divert from the path, and we're going to dip into Druid. We haven't done Druid on this channel yet, which is crazy. I like Druid a lot. Druid is very, very strong. Wild Shape is a great ability, even though we're really not going to be utilizing it all that much on this build, and it's a great spellcaster, which we're not going to be using all that much spellcasting on this either. There is a particular thing that I really, really want from Druid though, and so we get that at level 2. A couple things about Druids, since we haven't talked about them on this channel yet. They don't wear metal armor, so we've got to get rid of our scale mail now. You could make the argument to take the leather armor early, but it actually isn't going to be any better than our unarmored defense, so there's not really any reason to do anything like that. So yeah, now we have to drop our armor. So our AC is pretty bad right now. It's what, a 15 if we have a shield, which is pretty low. But we are going to fix that coming up here soon. We're going to make it better. Again, we're relying on the tail right now, just to help us out where we can. So at level 1, we get Druidic, which is just basically, you know, when Druids don't want you to be able to tell what they're saying about you behind your back. And then we also get our spell casting. So keep in mind, we do not get to cast or concentrate on spells while we're raging. So don't try to pick up battle spells. Look for more utility and outside of combat spells, which for the Druids, there are a few. There's a lot of battle spells for Druids. There's not a ton of outside of battle spells, but there are enough that can work, or even spells that you can cast for combat that don't require concentration and that sort of thing. So for cantrips, we get a few of those. I would definitely get Druidcraft. Druidcraft is basically just Druid Prestidigitation, which is always good. Really, really good utility there. Definitely works outside of combat. And the other one's up to you. You know, you could always pick up a damaging spell if you wanted to, just at the beginning, if you wanted something at range. Your bonus to hit and your spell save DC are going to be really bad, so don't rely on that. It's not going to be good, but it's there. As far as first level spells, Goodberry is always a good one. I think that that's a really good grab if you keep track of, you know, eating and don't worry about not starving your players. I know some people don't really keep up with it, but yeah, and it's also, you know, 1 HP, so it's a thing. And then you also can take things like Longstrider. I think Longstrider you'll get a lot out of. Speak with Animals and Snare as well. Snare is actually pretty cool too for detection if nothing else. Level 7, we're a Druid 2 and we get Wild Shape. Now, Wild Shape allows us to transform into beasts of CR quarter or lower. We're probably not going to use this in battle just because we're not going to be able to scale it because we're not taking enough levels in Druid to scale it. So our transformations are going to be pretty poor. But it could be used for scouting if we need to be something tiny or something like that. We can have a swim speed or a fly speed, so that's kind of out. But, you know, we can make some use of it. What we're going to be using it for, though, is our subclass. We're taking Circle of Spores, and this is a really cool subclass added in Tasha's. Very flavorful and has some really cool stuff in it. So we're here for 2 features. Hail of Spores, which is sort of good, and then Symbiotic Entity, which is quite good. And I think we're going to get a lot of mileage out of it. So Hail of Spores is a constant aura around us in a 10-foot circle, and basically when a creature in that range ends its turn or enters that turn, you can use your reaction to deal 1d4 necrotic damage to it. Now, it's a con save based on your wisdom, which is going to be quite low. So don't rely on this because Constitution saving throws are really bad for us facing creatures because they usually have really good Constitution saving throws. So this probably won't work all that often, but it's okay. It's okay. We're here for Symbiotic Entity, and I think that is worth our 2-level dip, our Symbiotic Entity feature. So basically what this does is as an action, instead of transforming, we can use this as our Wild Shape, and this will help us increase damage. So first of all, we're going to get 8 temporary HP since it is 4 times your Druid level. And since this is the last Druid level we're taking, that's all we're getting, which is unfortunate. But it is a little low. And so we do have to make sure that we're increasing our AC as much as we can so that we're not taking damage as much as we possibly can. And we still have resistance, you know, while we're raging, because we can rage and Wild Shape at the same time. So, you know, we might be able to take a few hits here. But so basically we can roll an extra die on our Hail of Spores, which is cool. And any of our weapon attacks deal an extra 1d6 damage in necrotic damage, which is pretty great. And so for 2 levels, I don't think it's that bad. You know, if you want to take Fighter, we could go crazy and take like Rune Knight. Rune Knight would be interesting and give us an extra little bit of damage. It does cost 3 levels. And I think this gives us a better like defensive feature rather than it being strictly offensive. And so we're going defensive on this one. So that's why we didn't go Fighter. But I can definitely see going Fighter, and we'll talk about that at the end of the video. So level 8, we're back to Barbarian already. We just needed the 2 levels and then now we're back. So we're now Barbarian 6, and so we get Bestial Soul. Again, you could have taken this earlier if you needed it for the versatility of having a swim speed or climbing speed. But we'll go ahead and take that here. This is a really awesome feature, not to be downplayed. We talked about it a lot in our earlier video, but it is a really great power, giving you that ability to switch all that out. Level 9, Barb 7, we get advantage on initiative, which is absolutely fantastic, and we can ignore surprise as long as we rage first thing. Also awesome. These are really great features right in there. This range is a lot of really good stuff. I hate to put it off to take Druid, but I really want to go ahead and get that going in combination with Sentinel, so then we can kind of leave them in that range. It's tough that we don't get more than 1 reaction. I would love to have more than 1 reaction to be able to be doing the damage to them and stopping them in their tracks. But you know, there's a lot of uses for your reaction, so be careful with this one. We also kind of can get Instinctive Pounce if your DM allows that. So just, you know, be asking your DM if he or she allows the optional features, because Instinctive Pounce is a great feature if your DM allows it. So make sure to take that if you can. So at level 10, Barbarian 8, we get another ability score improvement or feat. As much as I want to take a feat here, just to help us a little bit, I can't with our AC being as bad as it is. I can't in good conscience leave all of those odd numbers. So we're going to go ahead and bump Constitution and Dexterity by 1. That's going to raise our armor class by 2, actually, which is great because each of those are affecting our armor class. So that's great. I definitely want to take our other feat here, and I want to bump our strength, but I can't in good conscience do that right now. I have to go ahead and be boosting our armor class because right now it's really bad. Yeah, I have to be doing better with that. So we're going to do that. Next, level 11, we're Barbarian 9. And we get Brutal Critical. So our crits do more damage now, which is fantastic. Which is going to be something we're also going to pick up later through a feat. So this is going to boost our crits a lot. So again, we're using Reckless Attack all the time to try to be fishing for all those crits. We have extra attack, so we're trying to get crits as much as we can, and our crits are going to be doing a ton of damage. So really cool there. Also, our rage damage increases to +3 instead of +2, which is absolutely great. The thing is right now, and the thing with this build is that we do need a round of setup. So we would have to do Wild Shape and then bonus action Rage in order to be completely set up. That way we have everything we need, but that's really not that bad to just have that one round of setup. The big thing, you just want to make sure that you don't lose your Rage. But that's why we have Sentinel and the tail. So we have that reach with the Sentinel, and we can go ahead and make an attack roll at reach if somebody is just within 15 feet. They don't even have to be within 5 feet now, which is fantastic. We're wanting Persistent Rage so that we don't have to rely on that, but with a 15-foot reach, we're doing pretty good. So that's really nice. Our damage isn't too bad as of right now. You know, we got 2d6 coming from the Morning Star, at least with 2 attacks. We got 2d6, 2d6 for the Symbiotic Entity, adding to those, 6 for Rage, 8 for our Strength, which isn't too bad at this rate. Again, we're not going for an all-out damaging build, otherwise we would have gone like Fighter and would have gone like craziness like that. But again, we're going for a more defensive build, a more way to shut down and battlefield control, at least within a pretty decent sized sphere. So that's what we're going for with this build. We're not going for all-out damage, but our crits are still going to be doing a lot of damage. Level 12, we're Barbarian 10, and we go ahead and get Infectious Fury, which adds another 2d12 psychic damage onto our damage, so we're doing pretty great. Or we can make an enemy attack another enemy, but that's not going to come up as often. But it could, and if so, you know, the thing is though, 2d12 psychic is really hard to pass up. It's really tough. Then we finally get Relentless Rage at level 11 for Barbarian, level 13 overall, and this just makes it so much better for our survivability. We can stay up and stay in the fight much longer. Again, it took us a long time to get here because we have resistance to weapon damage, and so this is really great as far as working with that. Then level 14, this is what I've been trying to fast forward to, I guess, a little bit. Barbarian 12, ASI or feat. We're going to finally take that feat. And you might be thinking, but you have a 19 in strength. Why not just bump that? Well, you know what? We're going to use the feat to bump that. We're going to take Piercer. Piercer is a new half feat that was introduced in Tasha's. I say new. Tasha's has been out a while. But Piercer basically allows us to have slightly more reliable damage with piercing damage. And we'll talk about that here in just a second. But we get a +1 strength built in to the feat since it's the half feat. So that's going to bump us to 20. So we've now maxed out our strength, which is absolutely great. So we also now can re-roll 1 damage die on an attack that deals piercing damage once a turn, which is great. And this works with our tail. So that's why we went consistently with piercing damage. So that way we have tail and weapon. We can use either of those, which is really, really great. And our crits do more damage as long as we're doing piercing, which is great. So again, all of this is fantastic. We also get a 5th rage. Level 15, we are Barbarian 13, and we get our Brutal Critical increased 1 more die, which is great. We get level 16, Barbarian 14, we get our final Beast feature. Unfortunately, we find a bit of a rub here with our multi-class. And like, it's not that it's useless at all, but we lose a lot of what made this, this feature good. By taking Druid, but honestly I still think it's worth it. The way that the Spores Druid is worded is that if we lose the temporary HP granted by that feature, then we also lose the extra damage on our attacks, and we still get the aura, but we lose the extra damage on the aura as well. So I really hate that we're missing out on that as well. So here's how it is. We now have to make sure that we rage first when we set up our turn. So we're going to rage. We're going to get a bunch of bonus temporary HP from our friends. But then we're going to have to throw them all away to Wild Shape to activate our Spores ability. That is unfortunate, but if we lose the temporary HP from the Spores feature, then we lose the whole Symbiotic Entity feature, which was kind of the whole idea. So unfortunately, that's just kind of how it is. If your DM will allow it and just say any temporary HP, that would be awfully generous. I probably wouldn't, but if your DM would, great. And then you'd be good to go. But personally, I don't think that that's going to really happen all that much. So that sucks for Call the Hunt. It's a great feature, but you're not going to get to use it as much. It's not going to be as useful to you as it would be normally. Your allies still get the normal benefit. Level 17, Barbarian 15, we are now no longer having to worry about losing our rage, which is absolutely great. So our rage is only going to be lost if we choose to end it, or if we fall unconscious. We don't have to worry about making attack rolls or taking damage and that sort of thing. So that's wonderful. Level 18, Barbarian 16, we get our final ability score improvement or feat. We're just going to go ahead and bump Constitution. This not only helps us to have more HP, but also boosts our AC as well, which we definitely want. Our AC has been somewhat poor, but with a shield, hopefully you found a magical shield by this point. If you haven't found a magical shield by level 18, then you may want a new DM, just because it's very late in the game. So your AC should technically be higher than just what's on the page, and that will help your survivability a lot, coupled with the tail. We also get more rage damage, which is great. One more level, we get level 19, Barbarian 17. Our crits get better, and we get a 6th rage. Fantastic. And then 20th level, our capstone, which is, in my opinion, a little disappointing for this build, but it's fine. Indomitable Might, which just makes our strength checks much, much harder to fail. So that is the build. Let me know what you think down below. Of course, now it is time for honorable mentions. What we almost went with, what was almost to be, what technically was to be, at least in my world, but didn't quite make it into the video. So first was obviously Fighter. So Fighter, I almost went with a Claws Fighter with Echo Knight. Echo Knight is a great option for helping us do even more damage, because we get an extra attack that way. We don't necessarily have to attack specifically from our space, so it works great with barbarians. Just all kinds of things would have really worked for a claws build, but again, I wanted to do a tail build today. Maybe we'll do a claws build in the future, and it's fantastic. But yeah, it basically gave you that little bit of an aura as well, just like what we had before with this. Speaking of aura, we almost went Paladin. Paladin, of course, is a great option. Lay on hands is a great little healing bit, but more importantly, you get smites out of this, which are fantastic, and there are several subclasses that would have given us some really cool stuff. Unfortunately, besides Channel Divinity, which would have been cool, the magic stuff, a lot of their magic relies on concentration. In fact, most of it relies on concentration. And so, unfortunately, we wouldn't have been able to utilize a lot of what makes Paladins great. So, unfortunately, we did lose that. And finally, like I said, we almost went with a lance build, which could have gone several ways. I just think of a goblin with a lance, which would have been hilarious, but definitely could be a thing. I actually also thought about going swashbuckler, which could have been very weird. Kind of worked against itself in certain ways, but still a cool option as far as being able to get people out of your face, which is pretty neat. So that is all I have for you for today. Next week, we're going to be covering the Berserker Barbarian. So if you just want to add a whole lot more Barbarian to your Barbarian, this is your ticket. This is how you get there. So make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss that episode where we rank it and then either build it or fix it, just depending on how we rank it. So hope you guys have an amazing week this week. I hope you stay safe out there and stay healthy. I know it's crazy, but please stay healthy, stay safe, and we will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.